Hello, this is Kira of Kira K Designs, and I have created a pattern called Cecily the Starfish. I've got a finished one here, and I'm going to make her a friend by assembling all my pieces. So I have the top of the starfish done here, that's the one with the bumps. I have the underside, which is smooth. I got my safety eyes. I like them in two different sizes because I think it adds a little character. I've got some stuffing. This is recycled polyester stuffing. I have a darning needle, and currently I have it threaded up with some of my contrast color to do the smile, although you could do any scrap yarn that you think will show up nicely. I've got the same crochet hook that I made the pieces with, and then I've got some little scissors. So first up, we are going to put a face on the top of our starfish. So you can decide exactly where you want the eyes. I suggest that you do that on round 3. So this would be round 1, 2, 3. So it's kind of right about where it starts going down. And you can also decide if you want one of the arms up at the top of the forehead or if you want the eyes kind of in between. I tend to not think about it too much. I just try something on. So I'm going to take one of my eyes and put it in. I'm going to take my other eye and put it in a few stitches away. This particular one I did with some fingering weight yarn held double, and sometimes that makes it a little harder to find the gaps for the eyes. Just sort of wiggle around a little bit till you find an easy path in. So that's too close together. It looks a little silly to me. Maybe you like it silly, that's fine. This really adds a lot of personality based on how you do the face, so no wrong answers. To me, that looks a little bit more balanced in the eyeballs. They are on the same round, they're a few stitches apart. And again, I do have different size eyeballs because I think that's sort of fun. I'm going to commit to that. I'm going to flip it over. Try not to catch any yarn tails. All these yarn tails I've partially woven in on both of my pieces, and I'm going to leave the tails in there. They'll be part of my stuffing. This guy is on my final stitch, which is on a marker. We'll use that when we put it together. But for now, I'm just going to push these out of the way. I've got a smaller backing for the smaller eye. Sometimes these take a little work to put on, so I usually kind of push from one side with my middle finger and push with both thumbs on the other side. You want to hear it click, click, click. There are a few different little ridges here, and you want to pass at least one and ideally 2 of them. Same thing over here. Click, click, click. These guys are called safety eyes because they're really hard for babies or dogs or other people to kind of chew them off like they could with a sewn-on button. That said, if it's not going to be a baby toy, I think that sewing on buttons works fine, and embroidering the eyes with yarn is also great. Next up, I'm going to do my mouth. I've got my scrap yarn here. You can do it in different ways, but I'm going to do a fly stitch, which is a really cool embroidery stitch and easy to do. I'm going to come up from the back side where I want one side of the mouth to be. I'm not tying any knots, but I'm just going to leave a little bit of my yarn dangling here for later on. So it's like the top corner of the smile. Then I'm going to poke down in the other top corner of the smile, or where I think I want that to be. We're not committing yet, just like with the eyes. I pull this most of the way through, but not all the way. Then I'm going to come up where I want the bottom point of the smile to be. Pull that through here. I can pull it tight. You can see my smile has a little curve to it. Then stitch down the same place I just came up, but going over the other yarn, so it kind of traps it there. And then I'm going to gently pull on both of my tails of my yarn and see if I'm happy. I'm actually not very happy because I feel like this smile is a little off-center. This end needs to come a little farther. So super easy to just pull it through, start fresh. So I liked this placement. I'm going to come up in the same place I did there. Then here I'm going to try to go a little farther. It's almost below the center of each of my eyes. And of course my eyes are different sizes, which gives me a little leeway. So there's my straight across smile. You could do this if you want that kind of look. Totally fine. I'm going to leave it a little open, and for the fly stitch again, I'm going to come up at the bottom point of my smile and come down in the same place but passing over the other yarn. I'm going to tug both ends, and I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to keep that smile. And to finish it, I'm going to tie these yarns to each other. It's starting to get a little crowded on the back, so I'm just going to detangle a little bit. Looks like I might have poked through one yarn with the other, but it's not going to be a big problem. All right, so I would do this with a double knot. So crossing the ends, passing the tails through that loop created by it, and then repeating. just like with the tails that I had from my crocheted pieces, I don't have to cut this tight. I can just call it stuffing and tuck it into the inside here. You can also, if you want it to be a little neater as you're crocheting the pieces together, you could cut them off kind of close and then tuck the tails in later on. I'm actually gonna do the latter just because I'm on video. I'd like to have less stuff in my way. I'm gonna trim these off. I'll keep these. I'll put them in later on for stuffing. I'm gonna do the same thing here. I have partially woven these in. Not as much if I was doing, you know, a hat or something that's gonna get worn and washed a lot, but enough to be secure, and I could just trim these and tuck the tails in later on. So already looking more exciting with the face on it. And now it's time to start attaching them. With this, you want to have two ways of saying this: the right sides together. Sorry, I said that wrong. The wrong sides together, or the right sides out. So these are the sides that I saw when I was crocheting. I'm going to put those on the outside, so the wrong side, especially clear with the yarn tails and the eyeballs, are going to go against each other and line them up. I'm going to take my reserved loop and put my hook in there. And I'm basically going to single crochet these together, but we're going to have a few increases at the ends of the arms. So to start, I'm going to put my hook into the same stitch I did a slip stitch, and then into the matching stitch on the other side. And you can find the matching stitch just by kind of lining them up here. I actually think I didn't quite get the matching stitch. I think I need to go one over. And then again, I can line it up. That looks like a better fit to me. I'm going to do a yarn over and pull that through the two pieces of fabric, and then a yarn over and pull through both loops to finish my single crochet. And I'm going to go into the next stitch, and notice I'm going underneath both strands, or the full V on both the pieces. It's a little tight. That's not surprising, and if you want to, you could use a smaller hook as you're doing this step. So in through both stitches, yarn over and drop a loop, yarn over and draw through both. And this creates a little extra fabric at the edge. It kind of flattens out the edge of the starfish, which I quite like. Let me show you the finished one again. So you can see this is the single crochet edging on there, and it does show on the other side, which I think is kind of cute. If you're having a little trouble getting in, a smaller hook is an option. Another option would just be to find a hook that's a little pointier on the end and see if you like that better. Now for most of this, I'm putting one single crochet into each stitch. But when I get up to the tip of the arm, to help keep it nice and flat, I'm going to do a bit of increasing, just like you did when you were crocheting the pieces of the starfish to start. And all the details on how to make the pieces are on my pattern. It's called Cecily the Starfish. So here I'm at the top. Whatever looks to you like the top three, you're going to increase it. So I'm going to put a second stitch in the same place I just went. This one to me really looks like the tip of the arm. So that's going to be my middle one that I put 2 stitches into. And then I'll have a third one here that I put 2 stitches into. There were 4 stitches at the tip of the arm, but interestingly, it always seems like one is really at the end, and that's just because of the lean of the stitches. And I keep going down this arm. I'm going to stop when I'm about halfway down this side. Yes, actually, I'm about halfway down the side right now. I'm going to tuck a little stuffing in. So here's my stuffing. You really don't want much for the arms. So a tiny little wispy bit, and I'm going to tuck it in. And a great trick, especially if you have a hook like this that doesn't have a big squishy handle, is just take the end of the hook and use that to shove some in. If you see some white spots, that means you've got way too much. So I already have enough there. And then I'll keep going. It's a little easier, I find, to put a bit of stuffing in before you fully close the arm, and certainly before you fully closed all 5 arms in the entire starfish. Then it's hard to get the stuffing into those tiny little bits. All right, and then we're back to 1-to-1. I'm going to pause this. I'm going to do most of this, and I'll come back to show you how to finish the final arm and stuff the belly. Okay, I'm back, and I've crocheted around 4 of the 5 legs. So I have this leg open and a little opening into the body, and it's time to stuff it. I often take my hook out and I just leave it like that, but feel free if you want to be a bit more secure to put a marker in, that way it can't come loose. As promised, I'm going to take my yarn scraps and tuck them in. It's a really nice thing if you want to do like a lower waist crafting, is keep yarn scraps, fabric scraps. They're great for this. The stuffing that I use again is a recycled polyester, so this is like what you get when people recycle their water bottles. I actually don't use water bottles that are single use these days, but always good to kind of do the post-consumer recycling and use what other people have put into the recycling stream. I don't want a whole lot, but I do want, the legs are kind of flat. I like the body to be puffy, and partially that's written into how the pieces are crocheted. So I don't want to stuff it like as tight as I could, because then it might start stretching the fabric and showing some little white spots through the gaps. But I do want it to feel like it's, snug, and especially that the backings of the eyes aren't poking out the back. So I'm going to put a bit more in here. It helps to keep it nice and fluffy as you go in, just to keep yourself from jamming in way too much, which is absolutely what people tend to do. Usually I find people grab a piece of stuffing that's about 2 to 3 times what they actually need for the piece that they're doing. All right, so I'm gonna leave this a little open still in the leg because I have to crochet around it, and as with the other legs, I'll stuff it. It's mostly closed. Look at this, it's already looking so cute. So I'm back to my single crochet into each stitch. Oops, and see here I lost one of my 2 strands. You can make the starfish with either a single strand of a DK weight yarn or a double strand of fingering. It's a little trickier with a double strand of fingering, but you do get used to it. And just pay attention if ever you notice that you only have 1 strand on your hook. Back it up and do it again. Something I love about crochet is it's so easy to have a do-over. That is not true in all yarn crafts. So here I am at the end of the arm, so I'm going to put 2 stitches into each of the 3 that look like they're towards the tip of the arm. It's just fine to eyeball that. I think you'll get it right and there's no need to count. Sometimes I really make people count, and when it's not necessarily, I don't. So I'm having trouble here. I think I must have poked through a yarn when I inserted my hook, so I'll just give that another try. There it is. Done my increasing and then the home stretch here. You'll notice this is a little harder than crocheting the pieces, so if you're not in a good mood today, maybe try it another day. So I'm gonna pull my loop out a little bit, take just a pinch of stuffing to put into this final arm, and again I'm using the end of my hook to pop it in. You don't have to use the end of the hook, especially if you use hooks with like big squishy handles. Then you might find another implement in your house, like a chopstick, that you can use to push the stuffing in neatly. All right, last few stitches. So there's my final single crochet. I like to do a slip stitch to join it, just like we did when we were crocheting the piece. I'm going to go into the first single crochet over here and slip stitch. And I'm going to cut the yarn, leaving a couple inches of tail. And then yarn over and pull through to tie it off. And then I'm going to use my yarn needle here to tuck in that tail. So notice there's a little bump here. That always happens when you tie off. To fix it, what I do is I go underneath the back loop only of the next stitch and pull that firmly through, and that smooths it out quite nicely. Then I start weaving in, kind of going in that same direction. So I'm going to tuck this through the back of some stitches, heading away from where that bump was. It's hard to do a lot of weaving in here because we're on the outside of the piece, and also I just don't have a whole lot that's this color on the wrong side. So what people often do with toys like this is they push the needle in through the body of the piece and come out somewhere else, kind of far away. And then follow a stitch that's there and do the same thing again, coming out somewhere else. You definitely want to do this on the side that matches your color, of course. And then anything still sticking out, you could cut off, or if you can manage to, and I'm going to try, I can put my needle back in and then thread it after it's in, because it's too short to have it threaded originally. This is part of my zero waste crafting, or at least low waste crafting. I don't want to throw away those 2 little bits of yarn. I might as well let them be part of the stuffing of my starfish. And there we go. So this is Cecily the Starfish. She's got a little stuffing on her. That happens sometimes. And here again is my other one. This one is done with DK weight yarn, and this one is done with a fingering weight yarn held double. You'll see they're pretty much the same size, and I kind of like having a very high contrast color on the back, both just for fun and the piece, and so that you can use that yarn for embroidering the smile. You can find the pattern for this and all the instructions at kirakadesigns.com, and I hope that you have a lot of fun and show me your finished piece.